Alright, let's get started. Xeno, are you ready for your podcasting interview?
Yes.
Yes, so for those who don't know, you have to go through a very special interview to be approved by the National Podcasting League. You're familiar with this, aren't you, Wensleydale?
I don't know what you are talking about. I am a snowman. Occupation, a snowman.
And one of the rules, of course, is that you never admit to doing drugs ever. Isn't that right, Chris Larios from the Weekly Manga Recap podcast? Giving the rest of us a bad name, I swear.
No drugs. This is a good Christian stream.
Not on my Christian server.
Anyway. What's up, gamers, is indeed the appropriate intro, since this time around on the Hideaway, we are talking about some video games. And with me today, as you could probably hear, I have a new guest. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello everyone, I'm Xeno. I am a gamer.
Dabs. You are a cosplay extraordinaire?
Oh, I mean, I wouldn't go that far, but...
I don't know, I'm pretty impressed with what you've done.
I'm pretty impressed as well, and I haven't seen any of your cosplays.
Oh, well, thank you.
I'm impressed already.
Xeno's a friend of mine, we met at uni, and yeah...
we met at our
bring her
uni's
onto-
anime society.
And then, also, of course, we have Wensleydale as well.
Hello.
So, first of all, have we been watching, reading, playing anything interesting besides the subjects at hand?
I've been watching Black Clover. Full disclosure, I have actually just been watching Black Clover purely for Captain Yami. But, you know, I'm enjoying it. It's generic shonen, but, you know, once you look past that, it's pretty fun to watch.
Yami is a good reason to watch it, though my reason for reading it was Finral.
Yes, Finral's great as well.
My favourite character is probably Noelle, which is you wouldn't expect from me, given my track record with tsundere characters, but there you go.
I feel like she's a bit more himedare than tsundere, which is kind of
Yeah.
like a subtype that's not as terrible. Is that controversial?
No, not really. They can overlap. I just got around to finishing the third season of Agretsuko, which it seems like it's wrapping things up. I won't go into specifics, but it feels like a good stopping point for the series. I have this weird thing where, at this point, Netflix will just jump a whole season of something, and I'll just barely get around to finishing it, like, months later, just because I can't binge like that.
Yeah, I've yet to watch it yet, but I've watched the first and second season and really liked them.
You see, Asha and I are usually binging things, but with Fate Zero, it's been difficult. The first episode wasn't very inviting.
Yeah, there must have been a better way to introduce that series than a 40-minute exposition dump.
Now it's fine. It's fine. I'm mostly looking forward to the moments between Waver and Ryder, although most of the characters don't seem to be grabbing me at the moment. Especially that goatee guy. Has he been trapped in this cellar for like 6 episodes now with the same basic shots?
Wensleydale, you got to allow a man his den. You know, just look at the Hideaway. Sometimes guys just like spending, you know, copious amounts of time cooped away in their own little lair.
Okay, fair enough. Looks at the Hideaway, definitely a real physical place that us three are all in.
Yeah, I hope you like the decorations I've put up, by the way. I made them especially for the interview. I've got the little grape hippo doll as a reference to the third episode where I was trying to be a Monokuma stand-in.
And, of course, speaking of Lancers, since I talked about Fate Zero, what are we going to be talking about today? I wonder.
So, we're going to be talking about a game that Xeno and I have both been playing lately. A game, or rather a couple of games, by the names of Undertale and Deltarune.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes.
Full disclosure, I'm going to give up front when we're going into spoilers for each game. So, when we're talking about Undertale, we'll try to avoid giving spoilers on Deltarune, and then once we get to Deltarune onwards, we'll just... all spoilers are allowed, pretty much. I guess to start off with, how did each of us come across Undertale? Full spoilers for Undertale from here on.
Yeah, I got into Undertale in uni back when my 2 friends recommended it to me. We've been streaming some Earthbound at the time, and I very quickly got into it. I love the aesthetic, I love the storytelling, the sense of humour, the many different charismatic characters, so much so that I got into some animated projects, some AU projects. Like, for example, I've played a few roles in the comic dub of Inverted Fate, which is an alternate universe where basically some of the characters swap roles, but the twist is that the player character doesn't remember that the game is being replayed this time, and this time it's Flowey that remembers and tries to trick them into actually being their friend. Yeah, it's pretty fun. It's being created by my friend Dorkt, and yeah, go check it out. I play a snowman.
Cheeky promo.
Xeno, how did you come across Le Undertale?
Yeah, so
It's definitely how it's said in French.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. I came about Undertale just through social media at the time when it was, like booming. 5 years ago when the game first came out. It was really, really big on, like places like Twitter and Tumblr, and it was also really, really big in the cosplay community, so that's how I kind of got to know what it was, because a lot of my friends were cosplaying characters from it. You'd go to conventions and there would just be like Sans cosplayers everywhere. Because for some reason on Tumblr they chose Sans as the character for the entire fandom to like fixate on, so there was just Sans everywhere, just all over the internet. So I started playing it around then when I was at uni, but I kind of had to stop halfway through my first playthrough because uni work got pretty intense, and then I kind of kept putting it off and going to other stuff before. But then this year actually I played through Undertale fully. I did a pacifist route and I really enjoyed it, and I kept saying to myself, I'm going to go through the pacifist route and then I'm going to do genocide, and I'm going to kind of really try and get good and do all the bullet hell stuff. But then I played through the game and I just fell in love with the characters so much that I could not bring myself to do it.
Yeah, no, I think only one of the three of us, for shame, has done that genocide route.
You see, the trick to that is replay the game a bunch of times, show it to your friends, and then you kind of start thinking of the characters mechanically, kind of like Flowey did, in fact. I feel like that was very clever commentary in that. And yeah, this is where you start becoming interested in the genocide route. I put it off for the longest time, but yeah, I did all the bullet hell stuff, I killed all the characters, but then after killing Sans, I just restarted the game so I could still have a friend of mine play through the genocide route again, then get that soulless ending as a surprise.
So, speaking of Flowey, the way I've experienced it, according to Flowey, makes me the worst kind of criminal. Because I first experienced it through a Let's Play, which, for those who don't know, if you're streaming or recording the game, Undertale detects it. And I think either in one of the endings or during the Flowey boss, he calls you out and he's like, and that's not even as bad as the people who just watch.
That's pretty clever. That's one of the things I really love about the game. It's so clever, and its sense of humour is just, and that's what appeals to me the most about it, I think. Yeah. The fact that so many different scenarios were coded into the game specifically.
Yeah, and it reacts to things the player does, and past saves and all that.
Even when you access the scene with Flowey, access the ending, you get a message from him that, you're being a dirty cheater, as far as I remember. I haven't checked. I haven't played the game in a while, and I might be misremembering a lot of stuff, so a lot of the time you're going to be reminding me of things.
That's okay. I first experienced it through Ross and Barry's playthrough of the Game Grumps, and they went through both routes, so I saw the full downward spiral of the genocide run. And then for a while I kind of just knew the game through osmosis, and I did several attempted playthroughs, but was constantly at the mercy of computers breaking down and losing all my progress, because unlike other Steam games, it doesn't keep a log on your Steam account. It's very logged to the system, because that's how the game works with all of the ways it interacts with the files. Then finally, after the Undertale concert happened, because that just blew up my Twitter feed. There was so much love and support for Undertale pouring onto my feed. I just had to go back and double dip on the Switch version and finally play through it all. So yeah.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you guys have listened to the concert. Yeah.
Yes. No, I was going to get into it. The concert, it was really amazing to hear all the tracks, fully orchestrated. In fact, Wensleydale showed me the entire concert after I'd finished the game.
Yeah, we watched it all the way through. 5 hours of the stream.
Yeah, it was brilliant. I had it on one day just while I was, because I moved flat recently. Just while I was like packing my things, I had it on in the background, and it gave me loads of determination.
Yay, nice. I think something to say about Undertale's music is that compared to a lot of other games that have that sort of 8-bit quality, or maybe 64-bit, that older chiptune sound, it translates into orchestral remarkably well, or remarkably smoothly, because as a point of comparison, I'm thinking of the Final Fantasy VII Remake soundtrack, how that reworks a lot of the themes from the original game, and it has to do quite a lot of heavy lifting and take quite a few liberties, even with the tracks that draw a lot from it, but Undertale, they didn't really have to change too much.
Toby Fox's music is amazing, and it's really started my love for, like, recognisable leitmotifs in media. I do love how they reoccur and how they play with the narrative.
Yeah, I mean, Toby Fox he's gotten a lot of work with Nintendo since Undertale was a huge thing. Like, he did the soundtrack for the Game Freak game Little Town Hero, and also one of the tracks for Pokemon Sword and Shield.
Yeah, I believe
really?
it was the Battle Tower theme, yeah.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah, no, you just look up the Battle Tower theme. It's very, very clearly him.
Nice.
I'll also say, another version of one of the Undertale tracks, an alternate version, is the Super Smash Bros. Ultimate version of Megalovania is awesome. It's not hugely overhauled, but it's slightly tweaked in places, and it's a really good rendition of it. It's well worth checking out if you haven't seen it.
I do also quite enjoy Megalo Strikes Back. It's like a track that has kind of been appropriated by the Undertale fandom to be the hypothesized battle themes for Kara in many AUs, in many fandoms. I believe Toby Fox created it like on one of the anniversaries of Earthbound.
So it's worth mentioning, it's quite remarkable how much of these games he just does himself. He's very hands-on. He both composes and develops it, and it's basically like the only other roles in Undertale is a few of the art assets were done by Temmie Chang and a couple of others.
Hoi!
It's basically all him.
Hoi! I'm
Hoi.
Temmie!
Hi, I'm Temmie.
And this is my friend, Temmie! Hi, I'm Bob.
I was going to say, that is one of my favourite moments. Like, there are a couple moments in Undertale that genuinely just made me laugh out loud, and one of them was the line of Temmie's, and then they're all just like, hi, 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 and then you get to the last one, it's just like, hi.
And it does the same thing when you go back at the end and see everyone. It always has the outlier of the dialogue.
Yeah.
The Temmies are very much a send-up of characters from the Mother or Earthbound series called Mr. Saturn. Yeah, the Earthbound games are very much a big influence on Toby Fox. I mean, he worked on a bunch of ROM hacks of Earthbound before he did Undertale, and you can definitely see that influence. They have the same kind of quirky humour to them, and sometimes they play around with the tropes of the traditional JRPG in certain ways. Like, it has loads of weird enemies, like you fight hippies. There's one point where you fight people who are basically Ku Klux Klan's members. It's wild. And yeah, there's also this thing called Saturn Village with all these little weird heads called Mr. Saturn that talk at you in this weird font, and they always say, "Kale!" instead of "okay."
Amazing.
Can't believe that they predicted the Cartoon Network series.
So I think it clearly has that NES, SNES influence, but I think the really interesting thing about it as a game that sends those up is that a lot of the time, it'll kind of use that very limited, simplified style of graphics and occasionally break from it for dramatic effect. So sometimes, the aspect ratio of the screen will change in a given boss fight, or things will move outside it. Or sometimes you'll have things like Flowey that completely break the art style of the game.
Yes, Photoshop
Yeah.
Flowey.
Yes.
I was going to say, that was the bit that struck me the most when I was playing it. When the art style just completely changes and it just goes, like, insane.
Yeah, the later parts of the Pacifist run are a really good bait and switch in terms of, like, the horror elements, because the game always had this element of ominous build-up to certain things, but would always offset them with a joke. So a good example is when you're walking through the woods and it's all quiet and then Sans comes up to you and you're like, who is that? And it turns out, oh, it's just a goofy skeleton. And then kind of a similar thing like with Undyne. She seems really intimidating, but then you get to know her and she's really fun and chill. But then you get to, like, Flowey and the true laboratory, and suddenly it's just nightmare fuel all around, and it completely blindsides you with it.
I love that, like, speaking of contrasting things, I think Toby Fox tweeted once that if he made a 3D remake of Undertale, he would have everything exactly in the same graphics, except the annoying dog would be 3D rendered.
That'd be brilliant.
Nice. So, I guess to go through, what are each of our favourite moments from the game? Xeno, would you like to start?
My favourite moment. My favourite character is Metaton, and I think all the bits that he's in are just absolute gold. Like, when you're just walking down towards the car and then he appears above you in a princess dress and then sings an entire song about how you're gonna die. That's iconic. And then obviously the cooking show.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And the fight, you know, like the Death by Glamour, that's one of my favourite fights from the game as well.
It's definitely the hardest boss fight in the Pacifist run, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was definitely one of the tougher ones. For some reason, I kept getting stuck on Muffet.
Okay. I think I just about managed to do her in one try, but she was on a similar level.
Yeah.
Muffet is quite difficult, but she has my favourite battle theme, probably, so...
she does have a really good theme, yeah.
I really enjoyed losing to her over and over and over again.
Over and over again.
I guess the moment that made me laugh the most, it was just a little small thing. It's when you it's an optional thing as well. You can go to Undyne's house after you spare her and can go on a date with her. And there's a moment just where Papyrus is with you and he just says something like, okay, well, I'm gonna go get some ice cream also, and then he just yeets himself out of the window and floats away, and it's just so bizarre and sudden, and it gets me every time.
Then he just still listens and uses reverse psychology, so he challenges her to be Frisk's friend.
It's brilliant. Papyrus is a great character as well.
Wensleydale. Wensleydale? Wensleydale.
Aftercrator.
Aftercrator.
It's really difficult to pick. I think over the course of this podcast, I'm going to be picking ones at random that really impress me, because in my memory, the entirety of the game is so good to me.
My favourite moments, I think I've posted about this on Twitter, it's probably the moment where you finally get through to Asriel, he also might be my favourite character, and it's also got my favourite musical track in the game of his story. Like, I got to the end of that, it was quite late at night, and I was just bawling my eyes out. It's such an effective use of that main theme that was in the opening credits of the game and has occasionally popped up here and there. I think the way that Asriel is fleshed out as a character, especially if you know more about him in hindsight, makes that moment really land for me as an emotional hit.
Definitely, yeah.
For my favourite moment, rethinking it, I'm definitely going to go with the sequence in New Home where, as you walk to Asgore's room, to the Judgment Hall, you come across all the monsters you've encountered along the way, and they tell you the story of Kara and Asriel.
Yeah, no, that bit gave me chills.
Definitely, yeah.
It was a big part of what made the final payoff with Asriel so effective for me as well.
I think it does such a great job of both getting you hyped for the fight, but then also it has such like a solemn feeling too.
Yes, and this track, I really do love the Undertale track. The track titled Undertale. It's one of the only ones that was recorded live, apart from Home, I think. And for the tale being so sad, it gets really hopeful at the end, because all the monsters, they still think that Frisk is one of them, I think, and they're telling this tale and finally telling to each other that they're going to be free as Asgore gets the last cell that they need to break the barrier. At the same time, it's a really solemn moment for you, since you know that you're either going to kill Asgore or you're going to die. There's really no hope for a pacifist end to all this, as far as you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like that motif that both Asgore and Toriel, they're both very focused on trying to convince the player that they can't be spared, and sort of tricking them in that sense.
And this kind of mishmash of emotions that this hopeful track and these hopeful monsters, along with your knowledge of what's going to happen right now, just is really effective for me.
Yeah, I like that you basically get kind of pushed into a corner, because it's like, you know that you're gonna die, but then at the same time, from what everybody talks about Asgore being like, and from what you get like information from flashbacks and stuff, he's presented as King Dad. He's just this fluffy, nice guy.
Yeah, he's just
and
walking
then you
around
see
the kingdom.
him, and you know he offers you a cup of tea, and you're like, oh god, I can't kill this guy. But if I don't, then he's gonna kill me.
And then when he just breaks the spare button with his trident,
my god, yeah, that moment.
I think we both touched on musical things. So, Xeno, what is your favourite musical track, and why is it Death by Glamour?
Am I that predictable? Yeah, it's Death by Glamour. I think, for me, it's the most hype sounding song. And so when it starts playing, like, you know, the moment where you push his button, and then, oh, yes. It's that energy that you want for like a fight that's supposed to be televised across to all the monsters. And I think also the way that that song merges into the song afterwards for the fans, I really enjoyed. Like the moment where he gets all the phone calls from all of his fans, and then Napster Blook at the end as well. That entire transition from core to, I think it plays Metal Crusher to begin with, doesn't it? And then that turns into Death by Glamour, and then for the fans, that whole period that's like my favourite part in terms of the music.
I have a couple more thoughts to go on to, then we can move on. I think one thing is that I think an interesting thing about the way the game is structured is that even though it very much sends up that old school JRPG, it has a tendency to very much fast-track the grind. Once you defeat a boss in an area, enemies will stop spawning. The game is quite back-heavy with the ending content stuff, and I guess it's very keen to guide the player to places. The true pacifist ending is very much the game's special secret that it really, really, really wants you to know. And I think that does definitely play into why the game has managed to enrapture so many people.
Yeah, it's definitely a story-driven game. I'm glad that they focused on that, because I guess if you're doing genocide, you have to grind a little bit to get your love up.
Your level of violence.
Yeah.
Get your love.
I really liked that in Pacifist, it felt natural, it felt organic, that you were literally just exploring this new world and you didn't have to keep going back and forth between places. Unless, like me, you wanted to get the Temi armor.
I did the same.
Yeah. I basically went to the shop that was just before that area, bought a bunch of one item, took it to the Temi shop, sold it for a profit, and then just kept going back and forth, forth.
See, I did the secret that gave you the dog residue and just kept spawning dog residue.
Yeah, I tried doing that, but I got, like, frustrated.
Yeah, it's a really long way to do that, yeah. I must admit, it's my moment of shame. I completely missed the Temi village on my first playthrough.
Oh, no.
It's a shame. It's one of my favourite tracks of the game as well. Often when playing games with my students, I used to just play it in the background since it puts me in a wacky mood.
I love Dog Song as well. And then there's a version of it in the True Laboratory where you fight the dog amalgamate, and it's like a kind of deep fried is the only way I can describe it version of Dog Song. And then you basically fight the dog. Well, you don't fight the dog, you pet the dog, you play with the dog, you throw a stick at the dog, and then it becomes the Dog Song again, and you've got this cute, almost amalgamate dog thing.
I really love how the stick is your first weapon in the game, and then if you keep it, you can use it to throw it to all the different dog-based enemies in Snowdin, and then just spare them outright.
Yeah. Did you know that also if you use the stick in the Metaton fight, after you've knocked his arms and his legs,
yeah, then
he catches it in his mouth and he winks at you.
It's amazing. How did the stick become such a great element of the game?
It's like the most important item.
You can also reapply the bandage.
Yeah, I didn't realise that at first, and then I completely wasted it.
Speaking of the bandage, I love how when Papyrus asks for your clothes, he doesn't notice your regular striped sweater. Oh, he just notices the bandage or the tutu, and then he's like, oh, wait, that bandana. You're already wearing clothes. That means you cared so much about me.
There's a bit where, before you're fighting Undyne and she's chasing you, Papyrus calls you and is like, oh, what are you wearing? Because my friend here wants to know. She's looking for you, and you have a choice to, like, lie or not, and I chose to lie because I was scared of Undyne. She was coming to get me. And then a little bit later down the line, he calls you again and he's like, oh, so I know that you told me that you weren't wearing this bandana, but my friend really wants to kill you, and I'm a good friend, so I told her that you are wearing it. And I was like, thanks, Papyrus.
And no matter what you do, he's going to tell her what you're wearing. You've got no choice in the matter.
I have re-emerged. The VPN I was using just went completely haywire on me.
Oh.
But anyway.
Hovin has emerged once again from his hideaway.
I have emerged from the deep.
From the deep waterfall, which is one of my favourite tracks in the game. I really love how it's kind of slowed down foreshadowing of what Undyne is going to sound like. Speaking of which, Undyne's leitmotif is in the ruins. What's up with that?
Speaking of specific items in the game, can we talk about how I ate the butterscotch pie that Toriel made me literally immediately?
The butterscotch pie.
And then learned later on that you're supposed to save it until the fight with Asgore, and I was like, damn.
Yep. Same with the spider bakery. That can let you bypass the Muffet fight.
Yes.
Although I never do that. I want to hear Spider Dance.
Yeah, to be fair, Spider Dance is great.
I love that instant noodles are better dry and heal almost your full HP on a genocide run when you're fighting with Sans.
I think the last thing in terms of anything I've got to say is that it's cool that he's added different content for different versions. I know I don't know what was added in the PS4 version, but they added the Mew Mew doll boss in the Switch version.
I think they added the thing just before the Mew Mew boss, the shrine.
Ah, I see.
So there was the shrine, but then Mew Mew wasn't there.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
You see, I played it on Switch and I completely missed the Mew Mew fight as well. I was so gutted.
It's a very cool way to adapt the bullet hell to the Switch's Joy-Cons in a unique way.
Okay.
And so it also gives the angry training doll some closure, which is nice.
Yeah.
Oh, the Mad Dummy.
Good for her.
Oh.
Yeah.
I saw a really cool, kind of theory about the Mad Dummy, Napster Luke, and Metaton all being related. Well, I guess it's not a theory. It's kind of in the game, but not really touched on. And
I think that it's kind of that they're all cousins.
I see lots of really cool art of the three of them.
I think I heard a few theories. I don't know if that's the basis for Story Shift, the AU that Dorkt has contributed a bunch of soundtrack for, but I've heard the theory that all the ghosts in the game were once human souls. I like for Undertale to have a lot of open-ended stuff that you can leave to interpret, but I thought that was a nice basis for an AU, like Metaton swapped with Kara and Napstablook was Flowey, I believe.
Oh, that's interesting.
I feel like we've been on Undertale for quite a while, but why don't we move on to its spiritual successor, the demo of which is free to play, which is the entire first chapter, that being Deltarune. So full spoilers for Deltarune from here onwards, no holds barred. So I guess the first thing I'll say is, what a size for a demo! He did not need to release this for free, but just as a proof of concept to make sure that everyone would like it. I think that's a very cool thing to do.
Yeah, I would have happily paid for it, the size that it is.
Yeah.
Because he did a similar thing with Undertale, but that was literally just everything up to the tutorial boss, and this is quite a bit more.
Way more, yeah.
I guess one thing I think is an interesting question to ask with regards to Deltarune is, how much of a requirement would you say it is to play Undertale beforehand?
I think you definitely could play Deltarune without playing Undertale. But I feel like in order to properly understand the references and the feeling that something isn't quite right, I think you need to have played it to kind of understand how different the characters that are in it from the original game are acting, because that gives you that kind of feeling that, oh, something isn't quite right here. And I think if you don't have that context, you might not pick up on that.
There's also definitely the meta value of Ralsei turning out to be a representation of Asriel, whereas if you hadn't played Undertale and you just got to the reveal of what Ralsei looks like at the end, you'd be like, okay, he's a goat, cool. Whereas if you played Undertale, it's like, oh my god, it's Chris's brother!
Yeah.
It's Asriel! I don't know if the townsfolk being different is meant to feel wrong, per se, but it's definitely playing to what your expectations of the characters are, and in some cases against them.
Yeah, definitely.
So first of all, I think Deltarune fleshes out the combat system in a really interesting way, in that, it still has that core mechanic of choose to fight or choose to spare, but you now have a full party of characters, and that really changes up how you think about the gameplay, and it adds more options. It also apparently makes the game much harder to make, which I'm not surprised about.
Yeah. My only complaint about it, because overall I really liked it, my only complaint about it is that if you're trying to go pacifist, then you can't really do anything with Susie but defend, which is a bit of a shame. Sometimes you can act with her in interesting ways, but otherwise I don't feel like it's a mistake per se. It's just, I'm doing all those things with Chris and Rousey and nothing with her.
Yeah.
So I was being quite ambivalent. I was like, I'm not going to try and do a pacifist run, and I'm not going to try and do a genocide run. I was just going for like a neutral thing, just so I could get a feel for what it was like. So I actually did use Susie for like attacking and stuff, and I found that you don't actually kill any characters.
No, you don't.
It doesn't let you. They run away, and I think that links into the ending. The ending, you basically discover that, the character rips out their heart and throws it, and is basically it's saying, I'm done with that. I'm not gonna be like controlled. That's basically how I saw it, because when you're playing the game, you don't really get choices. It makes it feel like you have choices, but you don't. It makes you feel like you can fight or you can spare, but in the end, you actually end up with the same outcome. They run away, you don't kill them, or you spare them and they run away. That's something I really liked about the game, is that going through it, you don't really realise that it's happening, but then right at the end with that big shocking ending, you're like, oh god, okay, this little character has basically just turned around to the player who's playing it and said, I'm not going along with this anymore. And I just thought that was so interesting. No matter how you play, you get the same outcome.
I do like that you get a bit of a different thing when all the subjects of Lance's kingdom go to overthrow the Chaos King. Basically, it depends on your behaviour if you can say goodbye to them or if you have to run to the fountain immediately.
Yeah, I think that's one of the few things that kind of diverged, because I didn't get an opportunity to go back and say bye, which, obviously when you play Undertale Pacifist, you do get to go back and, say bye to everybody, and that's one of the things that's so kind of nice about the pacifist ending, because you get to see like the impact that you have on the world, whereas the way I played Deltarune, you're expecting to have that nice ending, but it's all just kind of rushed and you're forced to go immediately, and you don't get the choice, which I liked, that kind of feeling that you're not actually kind of getting any choice, and then right at the end
it ties into the theme of the game, and it does something different from Undertale, which I like, that it's not going with the same thing.
In terms of the story influences, the obvious one is Alice in Wonderland, with you falling into another world and having the playing card motif with the different kingdoms. But the other one I think that Toby might be drawing on here, because he used to do music for it, is Homestuck. And I say this as someone who's not read very far in Homestuck, but that comic seems to have like an element of there being kind of an imaginary, like a conjured up world, and then a real world that the characters both in, like,
I see what you mean. I hadn't thought of it like that, but now you say it, it does have that kind of feeling of two characters that basically interact with these two different worlds.
I believe that another medium, the theme from Hotland and also Megalovania were featured in Homestuck before Undertale.
Yeah, no, because I can be Mr. on my high horse. I recognised all these things from the Mother series, but I had someone do the exact same thing to me with Homestuck, where they were like, oh, this is where Megalovania was used to its most effective degree, and all of these Undertale casuals wouldn't know that. And then they showed me the scene, I'm like, this would probably be really cool if I had the context for
Imagine
it.
being elitist about Homestuck. And I say that as someone who was into Homestuck, like, big time, when it was, like, popping off on, like, Tumblr and all that.
I'd like to read it. I've read the comic that was the MS Paint adventure before it, Problem Sleuth.
Yes.
And I did enjoy that, but I've never gotten around to fully diving into Homestuck.
I guess, like, if you want to get into Homestuck but you don't actually want to slog through the entire thing, I'm pretty sure they've made graphic novels of it now.
No, I am interested in actually properly checking it out, because I did really like the format of Problem Sleuth, of how it's like, it's kind of this surreal comic that just goes completely chaotic due to how the readers interact with it, and I know that's how Homestuck starts off, and then it kind of grows into its own thing with a life of its own.
I might have to go back through it, go through the nostalgia.
The segment where you just control Susie on her own, it definitely shows to me that by having more of a party here, it gives you more freedom to take the focus away from the quote-unquote player characters in Chris. It gives you a little more variety in how you can have the cutscenes play out, because in Undertale, you're very grounded to Frisk. Everything is seen from their perspective.
Yeah, it was nice seeing it from another character's perspective.
I love how, with the duel between Susie and Lancer, you're kind of controlling her through the soul, but in my case at least, I wanted to end this fight as quickly as possible and have all the bullets hit the soul so that Susie would be pacified.
I guess one thing I could ask is, what other theories do you have on where the game will go next in future installments?
Ooh. I think what I would like to see is a continuation of that feeling that you're not in control of the game. I think they could go really kind of in a cool direction with that, almost like a kind of breaking the fourth wall kind of thing. Because games that break the fourth wall have been really, really popular recently. Like Doki Doki Literature Club and all that kind of stuff. It would be really interesting. If Deltarune kind of did the opposite of Undertale, in that, in Undertale, you had the choice to make, you have a choice to make. You can play the game in this way or this way, and the game's aware of it. For Deltarune, it could be like, you have no control. The game knows that you're not in control, and basically it's like, I'm just going to do whatever, and all you can do is watch. I think that would be fun. And terrifying, but fun.
Toby Fox sliding the horror meter up again, slowly but surely.
I'm really interested with the storyline and with the reindeer girl. I forgot her name.
Yeah, her with her sick dad.
Yeah.
Where it's going to go, since a lot of the characters in the city, in the Lightner world, I suppose, were part of Undertale, but we haven't seen them in the prior games, so... And again, I haven't played the game in a while, but I wonder whether Toby is going to do something with that.
I'm open to having my mind change depending on how it's executed, but I'm kind of hoping that the game eases up a bit on, here's all the cool Undertale characters you remember, and focuses more on fleshing out the newer characters.
Yeah, I agree. I think even it would be nice to kind of see, the characters that we all know and love, but I think I'm more interested in this new storyline with the new characters and seeing where they go. Maybe they could interact with the old characters. That would be quite fun, but I don't want them to be the focus.
Apparently the next chapter, Chris is going to meet Papyrus, who Sans wants them to play with.
I know Toby Fox has been posting updates about it, and there's a few images on his update blog on the Undertale site, and one of them has the whole party facing off against some enemies in, nurses and, doctors' outfits. The setting of the next segment looks very different, and I'm looking forward to seeing.
It could be something to do with, the hospital in the town, the dear girl's dad. It could maybe have something to do with that. Also, I don't know did you guys explore the hospital? Because there was this other room with this, absolutely terrifying looking monster just sat there staring at you. Right into your soul.
Yeah, I did.
It's horrifying.
I don't remember that. I have to replay it again, seriously.
Any other general thoughts on Deltarune?
Finding out that Metaton is not a star. What? Not my world. Not my.
Hashtag not my
No,
world.
I don't want to live in a world where Metaton isn't a star, darling.
I mean, to be fair, even Underground Metaton had 9 viewers when there was the new segment.
Me on my Instagram. Posting cosplay pics I'm a star. There's 2 people like it.
Me and my 8 viewers are going to love it. Oh no, once stopped watching.
It's like when I'm on the Stammer stream, I'm like, oh my god, we're going to get so many hate comments for that, and one of the others will just be like, did you get comments?
I'll start hate commenting on your videos if you want, Hovin.
Aww.
You just comment. You could just go over to the one about Shonen Battle movies and be like, what's all this slander about Stole Eater not being the most amazing shonen ever?
Please do. Comments help with the algorithm. That's going to you listeners as well.
Don't forget to like, share, comment, and also hate comment, apparently.
Subscribe, or else you're gonna have a bad...
Yeah, and leave us plenty of dislikes. They help with the algorithm as well, so I don't know what exactly you think you're doing. I guess it's not really that much of a question. Have you given any thought to the figure of the knight who Lance's dad mentions?
Yes, because the Javel, the optional boss, also mentions this when you beat him, which I didn't manage to do. I once again, after several tries of it, I resorted to being the worst kind of criminal according to Flowey and looking it up. And yeah, what was the quote? From now, a nightmare will awaken in your hearts in the shadow of the knight's hand. And see, I thought that was in reference to the ending of Chris throwing the heart into the cage. I thought that was what that was about, that Chris is the knight, and that's the nightmare is something to do with what happened there. But yeah.
It's really interesting. I hope maybe they'll delve into that more in the next part.
I think it's time to get to our Q&A segment, from which we only have Reddit questions. So let's all shame Twitter, everyone. Shame on you,
Reddit.
Twitter.
Shame.
Boo! Okay, so the first question comes from true_vort3x, who says, what do you think about the whole Gaster thing? So, Wensleydale, do you want to explain Gaster? Because I think you have a better knowledge of it than I do.
So, Gaster is basically Undertale's version of Yuboa. I think that's what she was called in... I think it was Yume
Mirai.
Exactly. So, Gaster is the previous royal scientist before Alphys. I believe it's not really clear whether that's true canonically, but he started the determination extraction machine, and then Alphys kind of took over. After some characters in the game that can appear erratically, which are called Gaster's followers, say that Gaster used to be the royal scientist, and then he fell into his creation, and then...
Didn't he, fall... He shattered across time and space, is what I heard.
Shattered across time and space, and now, whenever you enter the game, each time the game file assigns you a fun value, and whenever you have a specific fun value, you can talk to different Gaster's followers, they appear throughout the game. You can find different secrets, like the music room, where you can see all the unused tracks of the game, such as, for example, Gaster's theme, which is very spooky short loop, and finally, you can enter the room to meet the scary man who speaks in hands, which, by the way, he just speaks in windings. Like Papyrus and Sans have their own special fonts, and WG Gaster has also been two fonts, Wingdings and Aster, and he says some creepy stuff.
It brings us back to Black Clover.
Darker, yet darker, and then he disappears, I think.
See, personally, I think that his boss fight, that when they add it into Deltarune or one of the games, has just been like, oh, this core that I built is fucking huge, and call out things in battle like, you fight like you're 12!
Gaster UK, perfect.
And then on his final attack, he's just like, oh, I saw what you said on Twitter, of course you'd attack like that.
Chris, are you fucking 12? And also, Gaster's theme is also sprinkled throughout many themes throughout Deltarune.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you know that his theme is actually slowed down massively in an area to the south of the town? There's this kind of a underground building that you can't get into, presumably yet. When you're not kind of speeding up the sound, it just sounds like this kind of low humming that's quite unsettling, but if you speed that up, it's actually his theme. Ooh. And I didn't know that when I was playing it, but then I read on Reddit that someone had sped it up and found it, and I thought that was so cool. Mm-hmm. And I read this really cool theory that Gaster is the person that's speaking to you at the start of the game when you're making your character, and then turns around and says, you don't get a choice.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Which I think would be really cool, but you know me, Hovin, I love a mad scientist trope, so I really hope that we see more of Gaster.
Oh yeah, of course you would like him.
It just turns into the Mayuri of Deltarune.
I do love how his theme appears just a little bit in Scarlet Forest, which is probably my favourite track from Deltarune, apart from maybe Lance's theme.
Mine's Fields of Hope, probably.
Fair enough. Just Scarlet Forest is kind of that, but it sounded nicer to me. There's this moment where you can hear a bit of da 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 da, which is kind of almost like Gaster's theme.
Yeah, like reminiscent of it. Definitely.
Our next question is from Sarah of Tremor, who asks, what is the funniest moment in Undertale, in your opinion? I guess Xeno's already said hers.
Yeah,
that moment
Papyrus yeeting himself out the window.
Mine is also a Papyrus moment, which is in the date with him, where he goes, you're gonna have to be careful, I'm a skeleton with incredibly high standards. And you answer, I can make spaghetti. You've met my standards!
When you say, I have no redeeming qualities, he says that as well, I think.
Yeah.
And also just the minor joke of the ferry that says 3 gold for a ferry ride, and then after the ferry ride he gives you 3 gold.
Thank you for stepping on my face. Okay, Tumblr.
Tumblr at Undyne.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love the moment in Hotland when you get out of the lift. You meet this one little flame guy who says, "Hi, I'm the Heat's Flamesman. Remember my name." Then he asks you if you remembered when you get out of another lift, and irrespective of what you say, he says, "What? How could I be so easily defeated?" I fucking love that guy.
Yeah, I remember that bit.
Okay. And I guess, as a follow-up to that I've made up, what is the funniest moment in Deltarune for you? I've got one. Mine is probably, Susie joined your party, and you get the fanfare, and then she just, and then it's just like a later one, just like, Susie follows at a distance so no one can tell she's associated.
I was gonna say the same thing. That's the bit that made me chuckle in Deltarune, yeah. And then there was also a moment with Lancer, I think. Yeah, it's when you're going through like the maze bit, and he doesn't know where he's going, and you follow him, and then you get to just like a dead end, and he turns around and just was like, I don't know where I'm going. It's so good.
Then we have the last question we got from Reddit. It's from Solar Gold 07, who asks, how many chapters do you think there will be, and how do you think the game will end? So, Toby is very clearly keeping the cards on this one close to his chest, but he has said he's created readable outlines for every chapter, so he clearly has a rough idea of how many there's going to be. I'm going to put my bet in at a slightly generous 6, and I think the game will end with some sort of deep dive into Chris's psyche, like really exploring their inner demons and insecurities, because I think that makes sense as an end point, although that might just be something that the next part goes into and then develops into something else. We don't know, but yeah.
It's a good theory. For me, I think if they're going with the suit of cards theme, they might do maybe 4 for each suit of cards, and then a joker.
Yeah, a 5th one that's kind of, I don't know, puts a new spin on everything.
Yeah, that would be quite interesting.
I'm thinking what numbers were important in Undertale. I would think maybe 7, like the 7 human cells.
I think one thought that interests me is how was it going to be structured? Because the chapter 1 definitely felt like, because it's kind of a proof of concept thing that Toby is putting out as a demo, it's in a sense very self-contained with how it has the big epilogue at the end, and it kind of slowly introduces the full party mechanics. So like you said, that you kind of listed as a complaint earlier with Susie being kind of a nuisance early on, whereas later on when Susie finally plays ball, that seems like what's going to be the party setup going forward. I know Toby has said that chapter 2 feels like the sort of template he wants to use for the remaining parts.
Okay. It'd be very interesting to see what chapter 2 is like then.
Any other thoughts with regards to the future of the game?
I would just like to experience it as it comes, honestly.
Right,
I have
yeah.
no theories about it.
For the most part, I tend to take that sort of mindset. Oh yeah, I have one more question. Fave Undertale AU.
I mean, it's just it's a simple one. I just really like the I can't remember what the AU is called, but it's the one where it's basically swapped and the monsters are humans, and then Frisk is a monster.
Tail, I think.
I think it's just called Human Tail, but I just really like seeing the different interpretations of what different artists think the the characters would look like as humans.
Mostly from my browsing of different AUs, I just love to hear the different leitmotifs reworked into the versions of the original songs in Undertale. Just for that reason, I love hearing some story shift themes. Like in story shift, Kara takes the role of Sans, and in this you can hear Megalovania as Sans's theme, and Asriel's as Papyrus, which is kind of cool.
There's also Underswap as well that I quite like, where different personalities of the characters have been swapped. Just because I like seeing Undyne as like the nervous scientist. She's cute.
There are two versions of Underswap right now. One is from Team Switch, and one is from, I can't remember. And also, the same kind of swaps occur in Inverted Fate, the AU that I was cast a bunch of minor roles in. Although, in this case, the characters don't swap the personalities, and it's less about seeing different interpretations of the same kind of personalities in the same kind of roles, but with different aesthetics, I guess. It's more like, okay, what occurred some time ago in this timeline to make those characters just a different part of life? Why did, for example, Asgore run away to the ruins instead of Toriel? Why did Sans become a lieutenant of the Royal Guard while Papyrus became Undyne's assistant as a scientist? Alphys and Undyne are married in this, and you can see Alphys as a very different kind of captain of the Royal Guard, where she commands an entire fortress in Waterfall and uses more like tactical fighting to capture the human. It's a lot of interesting choices that I think make for an AU that's very interesting to read.
That sounds really good. I might have to check that out.
Please do.
My favourite AU is a brand spanking new AU called the Hovin AU, in which you don't play as Frisk, you play as Hoves. And Toriel it's kind of like that Human Tail thing, except she's replaced with an Ara anime MILF.
Oh god.
And in the final boss, you get into a big mech, which powers up and becomes the size of a galaxy. That's my AU.
I thought this AU
patented.
I thought this AU would be called Underboob.
Oh my god.
Sorry.
Brilliant. I think one of the things that is so great about the Undertale fandom is the creativity and the fact that there are so many different AUs, because people just keep on coming up with like so many different ideas for stuff.
It's quite nuts how avid the fan base is of that sort of thing. And I think there was kind of a period of time, like a couple years after the game came out, where it kind of became cool to like get really hipsterish and shitty about the Undertale fandom, just like, oh, they're so cringe. And I feel like, at least from what I've seen, it feels like the internet has kind of moved past that, thank God.
Yeah, it seems like people are kind of coming back now, especially since the 5th anniversary.
Yeah.
It seems like there's been a little bit more of a resurgence, and people are like, actually, so what if it's a bit cringe, you know?
Own your trash.
Own your trash.
I'm just gonna outright say it's not trash. It's a really well-written game, a fantastic story, and please go check it out.
Yeah,
Definitely. It's an amazing indie game, and I think indie games like Undertale should definitely be appreciated for like the art form that it is.
No, Toby Fox is an excellent game designer, and he does a great balance of being very self-aware and knowing and meta about the humour, and also being incredibly sincere and giving his game a ton of heart. So, yeah. Both games are well worth checking out. Probably best to play Undertale first, though.
Yeah.
Right. So, I guess that wraps us up. So, Xeno, good news. You've passed your interview. You are now an officially recognised podcaster by the Podcasting League. Congratulations.
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Hovin.
Yeah.
That really fills me up with so much determination.
I'm glad.
And I stammered, so how could I be so easily defeated in podcasting?
And where can people find you?
So you can find me on Twitter at KagaQ, so that's KAGAKYUU. I made it thinking that it was going to be cute, but it turns out no one can pronounce it.
You can find me on Twitter at WensleyCheddar, and you can find the World Trigger podcast that we do with Hovin at Duckface Diaries.
Yes, we do it with that guy Hovin, wherever he is.
That one guy.
The protagonist of Underboob, of course. You can find the podcast, and I also did for the Undertale fandom, BoJack Horseman outro parody as the Snowman. You can find it on youtube.com/c/Wensleydale Cheddar. And you can find our different podcasts at anchor.fm/Wensleydale Cheddar.
Yeah, no, please give World Trigger and Duckface Diaries a look. We've just gotten through all of the introductory arcs of the series, so it's a pretty great time to jump on board. I also have a World Trigger video in the works, but I lost all my progress editing it due to my computer breaking down, so it might be a bit. Look forward to that, and yeah, check out Hovin's Hideaway on all the various platforms in the description. Anchor.fm is a good place to go for links to the appropriate app that suits you. And follow me on Twitter at Hovin with an H. With that, I think it's about time we peaced out. Bye, everyone.
Bye. Thanks for having me, guys.
I'm thinking of an Undertale way to say bye, but something determination. I don't know.
Bye. Bye.
I used my blue attack and I turned you blue!